My sister forged messages, pretending they were from my late grandmother to take my inherited condo. She even filed a lawsuit to back it up. So I hired a lawyer, proved the text was fake, and took her to court. I never imagined I'd be writing something like this, but here I am 3 months after my grandmother's passing, dealing with a family situation that's spiraling completely out of control. I need perspective and legal advice before this gets even messier than it already is. My grandmother, Patricia Henderson, passed away in September after a brief battle with pneumonia. She was 82 years old and had been living independently in a retirement community in suburban Detroit for the past 5 years. Despite her age, she was sharp as a tack until the very end, managing her own finances, driving herself to appointments, and maintaining an active social life with her retirement community friends. I'm James, 30M, and my sister Rebecca, 28F, and I were Patricia's only grandchildren. Our mother, Patricia's daughter, passed away from cancer when we were teenagers. I was 17 and Rebecca was 15. Our father remarried 2 years later and moved to Florida with his new wife. Since then, our grandmother became even more important to us, essentially filling the role of both parent and grandparent. Throughout our 20s, both Rebecca and I maintained close relationships with Patricia. I lived about 20 minutes from her retirement community and would visit every Sunday for lunch. We'd go through her mail together. I'd help with any technology issues, and we'd watch old movies. Rebecca lived about an hour away in the city where she runs a boutique marketing consultancy. She visited less frequently, usually once a month, but called Patricia several times a week. When Patricia's health began declining last summer, I took on more responsibilities. I drove her to doctor's appointments, coordinated with her medical team, and helped her manage medications. When she was hospitalized in August, I spent every evening there after work. Rebecca visited on weekends when she could, though she often had client commitments that prevented regular visits. Patricia passed away peacefully on September 15th. The funeral was small but beautiful, with many of her retirement community friends attending. Rebecca gave a lovely eulogy about Patricia's influence on our lives, and I read a poem Patricia had loved. For a brief moment, despite our grief, Rebecca and I seemed united in our loss. That unity shattered exactly 1 week later when we met with Patricia's estate attorney, David Brennan, for the reading of the will. Patricia's will, which had been properly executed 3 years prior, with attorney Brennan's assistance, was comprehensive and specific. She had clearly put considerable thought into how she wanted her assets distributed. The major bequests were as follows. To me, James Morrison, her downtown Detroit condominium located at 1847 Washington Boulevard, Unit 14B, including all contents therein to be my sole and separate property. Also, her collection of first edition books, her father's vintage watch collection, and $30,000 in cash from her savings account. To Rebecca Morrison, her complete jewelry collection, independently appraised at $45,000, including the 3-carat diamond ring that had belonged to our great-grandmother, her 2019 Lexus ES 350 with approximately 15,000 miles, her investment portfolio worth approximately $75,000 and $50,000 in cash from her savings account. The remainder of her estate, including various smaller bank accounts, bonds, and personal effects, was to be divided equally between us. At first, Rebecca seemed satisfied with the distribution. She even commented that Patricia had been more than fair and that the jewelry collection included pieces she'd admired since childhood. We agreed to work together to clean out Patricia's apartment at the retirement community and handle the estate settlement cooperatively. Everything changed 2 weeks later when Rebecca actually saw the downtown condo. The property is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit in a restored 1920s building in Detroit's Capitol Park district. Patricia had purchased it 15 years ago for $150,000 when the area was still recovering from the economic downturn. With the recent revitalization of downtown Detroit, comparable units in the building are now selling for $400,000 to $450,000. The condo features original hardwood floors, exposed brick walls, 12-foot ceilings, and enormous windows overlooking the park. Patricia had furnished it beautifully with a mix of vintage and contemporary pieces. Rebecca's first words upon entering were, "This is worth way more than what I got." I tried to explain that Patricia had distributed her assets as she saw fit, that the jewelry and investment portfolio were substantial gifts, but Rebecca had already begun calculating. She pulled up real estate websites on her phone, checking recent sales in the building. Her demeanor shifted from grief-stricken granddaughter to calculating businesswoman in minutes. That's when she brought up the down payment gift. 5 years ago, when I was 25, I purchased my first home, a modest 3-bedroom house in Royal Oak. Patricia had gifted me $20,000 to help with the down payment. This wasn't a secret. She had done similar things for both of us over the years. The previous year, she had given Rebecca $25,000 to help launch her marketing consultancy. These gifts were properly documented, gift tax returns were filed, and everything was completely above board. Now Rebecca argued that because Patricia had already helped me buy a house, the downtown condo must have been intended for both of us to share. Her logic was that Patricia wouldn't have wanted to give me 2 properties while Rebecca got only money and jewelry. I pointed out the obvious flaws in this reasoning. First, the $20,000 gift from 5 years ago was exactly that, a gift completely separate from any inheritance. Second, Patricia's will was explicit about who should receive the condo. The language couldn't have been clearer. To my grandson, James Morrison, I leave my condominium located at 1847 Washington Boulevard, Unit 14B, Detroit, Michigan, including all contents therein to be his sole and separate property. Rebecca's response was to question whether Patricia had been fully aware of the condo's current value when she wrote the will 3 years ago. She suggested that Patricia must have thought the values were more equal and would have wanted to update her will if she'd known about the appreciation. This argument ignores the fact that Patricia was incredibly financially savvy. She had worked as a bookkeeper for 40 years, managed her own investment portfolio, and regularly reviewed her assets with a financial advisor. The idea that she didn't know what her own property was worth is insulting to her memory. Over the next few weeks, Rebecca's position hardened. She began telling family members that I was taking advantage of the situation and being greedy. She twisted the narrative to make it seem like I was somehow stealing from her, conveniently omitting the substantial assets she did receive. The situation escalated when Rebecca demanded a key to the condo. She texted me saying she needed access to evaluate the property and determine fair compensation. When I refused, explaining that the property was mine, according to the will, she accused me of hiding something. Her text read, "If you have nothing to hide, why won't you let me in? I have a right to see what you're getting." Patricia was my grandmother too. I responded that she had already seen the property during our initial visit and that I wasn't comfortable giving her unsupervised access to my inheritance. This led to an increasingly hostile series of messages where she accused me of being selfish, dishonoring Patricia's memory, and destroying our family. Last week, things took a formal turn. I received a letter from Rebecca, not from a lawyer, but typed on a company letterhead, demanding that I either add her name to the deed as a 50% owner or buy out her rightful share for $200,000. She calculated this based on her estimate of the condo being worth $400,000. The letter included several arguments. 1. The $20,000 down payment gift constituted an advance on my inheritance. 2. Patricia had verbally expressed wishes for both grandchildren to have property. 3. The current will didn't reflect Patricia's true intentions due to the unexpected appreciation. 4. As Patricia's caregivers, we both deserved equal compensation. 5. Refusing to share the condo was causing severe emotional distress to Rebecca. That last point particularly stung. While it's true we both cared for Patricia, I had been the one to shoulder the majority of day-to-day responsibilities, especially in her final months. Not for any expectation of reward, but because I loved her and wanted to ensure her comfort. To have that thrown back as a bargaining chip felt deeply wrong. I consulted with David Brennan, the estate attorney, who confirmed what I already knew. Rebecca has no legal claim to the property. The will is valid, properly executed, and unambiguous. He mentioned that Michigan law is quite clear on these matters and that Rebecca's arguments wouldn't hold water in court. However, he also warned that she could still file a lawsuit contesting the will. While she would likely lose, the process could be expensive and time-consuming. He suggested I might want to retain my own attorney separate from the estate representation. I've also discovered that Rebecca has been more active in her campaign than I initially realized. My cousin Jennifer called to ask if it was true that I was refusing to honor Grandma's wishes. Apparently, Rebecca had told her that Patricia had promised the condo to both of us, but I was using technicalities to claim it all for myself. My Aunt Linda, Patricia's sister, received a similar story with added details about how I had isolated Patricia in her final years and potentially influenced the will. This is particularly hurtful given that I had regularly encouraged family visits and had even set up video calls for Patricia with out-of-state relatives during COVID. Rebecca has also taken to social media posting vague but pointed messages about family betrayal and fighting for what's right. While she hasn't named me directly, anyone who knows our family situation can connect the dots. She's received numerous supportive comments from friends who only know her version of events. The stress of this situation is affecting all aspects of my life. My girlfriend Sarah has been supportive but is clearly tired of hearing about the drama. My work performance has suffered as I find myself constantly checking my phone for new messages or emails about the situation. I've had trouble sleeping running through conversations with Rebecca and wondering if I could have handled things differently. What makes this particularly painful is that Rebecca and I had a decent relationship before this. We weren't best friends, but we got along well enough. We had different personalities. I'm more introverted and steady. She's more outgoing and ambitious, but we'd always supported each other through major life events. Now I feel like I'm seeing a side of her I never knew existed. I've tried to understand her perspective. Perhaps she's struggling financially more than I knew. Maybe the grief is manifesting as anger, or possibly she genuinely believes she's been wronged. But none of these explanations justify her current behavior or make her demands any more reasonable. Today, I received a text from Rebecca saying she's hired a lawyer and will be pursuing all legal options to ensure fair treatment. She added that this was my last chance to do the right thing before things get really ugly. So here I am, seeking advice from internet strangers because I no longer know what to do. Part of me wants to offer her something, maybe $50,000 just to make this go away, but my friends and Sarah say that would be rewarding bad behavior and potentially opening me up to future demands. Another part of me wants to fight this on principle. Patricia made her wishes clear, and I feel like I'd be dishonoring her memory by not following through with them. Plus, I had plans for the condo. I was going to rent it out for additional income while I continue living in my house. That rental income would help me save for the future and maybe start a family with Sarah in a few years. But then I think about family gatherings, holidays, potential future children who won't know their aunt because of this dispute. Is a condo, no matter how valuable, worth destroying family relationships? My specific questions are: 1. Should I preemptively hire my own attorney, or wait to see if Rebecca actually files suit? 2. Can she really contest a will on the grounds she's suggesting? 3. Would offering a settlement make me look guilty or weak in future proceedings? 4. Has anyone dealt with similar family inheritance disputes? How did they resolve? 5. Am I being unreasonable in refusing to share something I was specifically given? I know this is long, but I needed to get it all out. Any advice, perspective, or similar experiences would be greatly appreciated. I feel like I'm losing my mind and my family simultaneously. Edit. Located in Michigan. The condo is in Detroit. The will was executed in Oakland County, where Patricia lived. Update 1, 3 weeks later. Sister produced fake text messages from deceased grandmother about condo being jointly intended. I want to thank everyone who responded to my original post. Your advice and perspectives gave me the courage to stand firm and hire my own attorney, which turned out to be the best decision I could have made, given what happened next. For those who didn't see my original post, my grandmother Patricia left me her downtown Detroit condo in her will. My sister Rebecca received other valuable assets, but is claiming the condo should be jointly owned because our grandmother gave me money for a house down payment 5 years ago. Following the advice I received, I hired my own attorney, Michael Chen, who specializes in estate disputes and has seen every family drama imaginable. His words: "The retainer was painful, $5,000, but Sarah convinced me it was necessary protection." Michael's first action was to send Rebecca a formal letter outlining the legal reality. The will was valid, her claims had no merit, and any further harassment would be met with legal action. He offered to meet with her attorney when she retained one to discuss the matter professionally. Rebecca's response came a week later in the form of a request for a family meeting to resolve this amicably. She suggested we meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown, to work through this, like adults who loved their grandmother. Michael advised me to attend, but to bring him along. He said it would either lead to resolution or provide valuable information about her intentions. I agreed, though I was skeptical about Rebecca's sudden desire for amicable resolution. The meeting was last Tuesday at 2 p.m. I arrived with Michael to find Rebecca already there with her boyfriend Tyler. She immediately objected to my bringing lawyers into a family discussion, conveniently ignoring that she had threatened legal action multiple times. After some tense back and forth, Rebecca said she had something important to share that would change everything. She pulled out her phone and showed us printed screenshots of text message conversations allegedly between her and Patricia. The messages dated back 2 years and included several exchanges about the condo. Key excerpts included: "Rebecca, dear, I want you and James to share the downtown condo when I'm gone. He already has his house, so it only seems fair. Don't worry, sweetie, I'll make sure the condo arrangement is clear. You both deserve to have a place in the city. I'm planning to update my will next month to reflect our discussions about the condo. You and James will both be taken care of." That last message was allegedly sent just 6 weeks before Patricia passed away. I stared at these messages in shock, not because I believed them, but because they were so obviously fake that I couldn't believe Rebecca thought anyone would fall for them. Here's why. First, the writing style was completely wrong. Patricia texted like a typical 82-year-old. Short messages often in all caps, lots of ellipses, and frequent autocorrect errors. These messages read like a 28-year-old trying to sound like a grandmother. Perfect grammar, proper punctuation, and modern phrasing Patricia never used. Second, Patricia exclusively used voice-to-text for longer messages, which always resulted in hilarious misinterpretations. I have dozens of texts from her where grocery store became grossly story, or love you dear became love you beer. These fake messages had none of those characteristic errors. Third, and most damningly, one of the messages referenced Patricia being at the cottage this weekend. Patricia hadn't owned her cottage for 3 years. She sold it in 2021 when maintenance became too much. Rebecca apparently forgot this crucial detail when crafting her fiction. Michael, maintaining his professional composure, simply asked to see the original messages on Rebecca's phone. She claimed she had recently upgraded her phone and only had these screenshots. When asked why she hadn't mentioned these crucial conversations during the initial estate proceedings, she said she hadn't realized their legal significance until consulting with friends. I couldn't contain myself anymore. "Becca, I was with Grandma the entire week this message was supposedly sent. She had just gotten out of the hospital after her fall. She could barely hold her phone, let alone type out elaborate messages about estate planning." Rebecca's face flushed. "She must have sent them when you weren't there. You didn't monitor her 24/7? James, stop acting like you were her only grandchild." Tyler interjected. "Maybe you just didn't know Patricia as well as you thought. Rebecca had a special relationship with her." Michael shut down the conversation professionally. He stated that these screenshots would need to be properly authenticated before they could be considered evidence of anything. He requested specific information, the phone number they were sent from, complete metadata, and access to Patricia's phone records. Rebecca became defensive, saying we were attacking her and calling her a liar. She accused me of turning the family against her and said Patricia would be ashamed of how I was treating my only sister. The meeting ended with Rebecca storming out, but not before delivering a parting shot. I know what Grandma wanted, James, and I'm going to make sure her wishes are honored with or without your cooperation. The aftermath of this meeting has been intense. Rebecca has doubled down on her story, now sharing these screenshots with extended family members. She's created a narrative where I'm suppressing Patricia's true wishes for my own gain. My cousin Mark called me yesterday confused. James, why didn't you mention these texts before if Grandma really wanted you both to have the condo? I had to explain the suspicious nature of the messages, but it sounds crazy to say your sister is forging texts from your dead grandmother. Michael has been invaluable during this time. He immediately requested Patricia's phone records from her carrier and began the process of forensic analysis on the screenshots. He also advised me to gather evidence of Patricia's typical communication style and her physical condition during the time frame in question. I've spent the last week compiling genuine text exchanges between Patricia and me, showing her actual writing style medical records from Patricia's August hospitalization, showing her limited mobility calendar entries proving I was with her during the alleged message time statements from retirement community staff about Patricia's condition and capabilities, and screenshots of Patricia's Facebook posts, rare but telling, showing her actual writing style. The most helpful evidence came from an unexpected source. Patricia's friend Dorothy from the retirement community reached out after hearing about the family drama from my aunt. Dorothy had been Patricia's closest friend and had dozens of text exchanges with her. She was horrified by Rebecca's claims and immediately offered to provide her messages as evidence of Patricia's actual texting style. Even more importantly, Dorothy revealed that Patricia had explicitly discussed the condo with her just 2 months before passing. According to Dorothy, Patricia said, "I'm leaving the condo to James. He's been so helpful and it will give him good rental income. Rebecca is getting mother's jewelry and good money. She'll be fine." I've also discovered more about Rebecca's financial situation. Her marketing consultancy isn't as successful as she portrays. A mutual acquaintance let slip that Rebecca lost her biggest client 3 months ago and has been struggling to pay her office rent. This context makes her desperate grab for the condo more understandable, though not excusable. The family divide has deepened. Some relatives have chosen sides, others are trying to stay neutral. Thanksgiving is 3 weeks away and I'm already getting calls about keeping the peace and not letting money destroy family. My favorite aunt Linda, Patricia's sister, called me crying. I don't understand how it came to this. Patricia was so careful with her will to be fair to both of you. I assured her that I was simply trying to honor Patricia's actual wishes, not the fabricated ones Rebecca created. The emotional toll continues to mount. I find myself second-guessing every interaction with Rebecca over the years. Were there signs of this manipulative behavior I missed, or has grief and financial pressure transformed her into someone I don't recognize? Sarah has been my rock through this, but I can see the strain. Last night she asked, "Is there any amount of money that would make this just go away?" I understand her exhaustion, but I can't shake the feeling that giving in to Rebecca's fraud would be betraying Patricia's memory and enabling future manipulation. Michael remains optimistic about our legal position. He says the forensic analysis should be complete within 2 weeks, and he's confident it will confirm the messages are fabricated. He's also preparing a cease and desist letter regarding Rebecca's distribution of false evidence to family members. But I'm realizing this isn't really about legal positions anymore. It's about watching my family implode over money and lies. It's about losing my sister to greed and desperation. It's about spending what should be a time of mourning, instead fighting over assets. I'll update again when the forensic analysis comes back, or if there are any major developments. For now, I'm trying to focus on work, maintain my relationship with Sarah, and remember the grandmother who loved us both even if one of us seems to have forgotten that love in favor of material gain. Thank you again for all the support. Your comments remind me that I'm not crazy for standing up against this manipulation, even when family pressure makes me want to give in just for peace. Update 2. 2 months after original post. Final update. Sister filed lawsuit, moved into my condo, told neighbors she's co-owner. It's been a nightmare. I genuinely cannot believe I'm writing this update. When I first posted 3 months ago, I thought I was dealing with a simple inheritance dispute that would resolve itself once Rebecca accepted reality. Instead, I've been living in what feels like a bad legal drama, complete with break-ins, fraud, and family destruction. For those just joining the saga, my grandmother Patricia left me her downtown Detroit condo in her will. My sister Rebecca received other substantial assets, but claims the condo should be jointly owned. She produced fake text messages to support her claim, which were proven fraudulent by forensic analysis. Following my last update, things were quiet for about 3 weeks. The forensic analysis came back exactly as expected. The messages were created using a third-party app called Fake Text Message. Yes, it's really that obviously named. The metadata showed they were created 2 weeks after Patricia's death, not 2 years ago, as claimed. The formatting matched the app's templates perfectly. Armed with this evidence, Michael sent Rebecca's attorney, yes, she finally hired one, a comprehensive letter outlining the fraud and demanding she cease making false claims. We offered to not pursue criminal charges if she dropped all claims to the condo and stopped spreading false information to family members. Their response was to file a lawsuit. 2 weeks ago, I was served at work, which was professionally embarrassing. Rebecca's lawsuit claims 1 constructive trust based on Patricia's verbal promises, 2 unjust enrichment due to the previous $20,000 down payment gift, 3 undue influence over Patricia in her final years, 4 breach of fiduciary duty as co-caregiver, 5 intentional infliction of emotional distress. Her attorney Kevin Walsh seems to be taking a throw everything at the wall approach. The complaint is 47 pages of dramatic language and wild accusations, including claims that I systematically isolated Patricia and manipulated her into disinheriting Rebecca. But the lawsuit was just the beginning of the nightmare. Last Thursday afternoon, I received a call from George, the security guard at the condo building. His exact words were, "Mr. Morrison, your sister is here with a moving truck. She says she's moving into her unit. I wanted to verify with you before letting her up." I immediately told him she had no right to be there and headed downtown, calling Michael on the way. By the time I arrived 45 minutes later, I found a small moving truck parked outside and Rebecca in the lobby arguing with George. She had somehow obtained a key. I later learned she convinced a locksmith she was locked out of her condo, showing the lawsuit as proof of ownership. She had already sweet-talked a different building employee into helping her move boxes up to the unit before George's shift started. When I confronted her in the lobby, she remained eerily calm. "I'm just moving into my property, James. My attorney says I have every right to access the condo while our ownership dispute is pending." I called the police, but the situation was more complicated than I expected. Rebecca showed the officers the lawsuit paperwork and claimed to be a legal co-owner. The officer said it appeared to be a civil matter and suggested I get an emergency court order if I wanted her removed. They wouldn't even treat it as trespassing. By the time I got up to the condo, Rebecca had already moved in several boxes, a desk, 2 chairs, and was in the process of setting up a computer in the second bedroom. She had hung up a whiteboard with her company logo and was arranging office supplies on the desk. "This is perfect for my client meetings," she said, as if we were having a normal conversation. "The view is so much better than my current office. We really should have been sharing this space all along." I was speechless. My sister was standing in my condo acting like she owned it while I stood there powerless to stop her. Michael advised me not to physically remove her or her belongings, as that could be used against us in court. That night was one of the worst of my life. I stayed in the condo's primary bedroom while Rebecca occupied the second bedroom. She actually had the audacity to knock on my door at 10 p.m., asking for the Wi-Fi password and suggesting we work out a roommate agreement. I spent the entire night on the phone with Michael preparing emergency court filings. We documented everything, took photos of her belongings, saved security footage of her arrival, and prepared affidavits from building staff. Over the next 3 days while waiting for our emergency hearing, Rebecca made herself completely at home. She changed the building's contact records to include her name and phone number as co-owner. She told multiple neighbors that she had recently resolved an inheritance dispute and would be using the condo for her business. She posted on Instagram and LinkedIn about her new downtown office space, including photos taken from the condo windows. She scheduled and conducted 2 client meetings in the condo. She had mail forwarded to the address and received several packages. She even hung artwork on the walls and brought in plants for ambience. The most surreal moment was when I came home from work on Saturday to find her hosting a small networking event for 5 other young professionals. She introduced me to her guests as her brother and roommate, who was adjusting to the new arrangement. Monday's emergency hearing was a circus. Rebecca showed up dressed impeccably, carrying a leather portfolio and looking every inch the successful businesswoman. Her attorney argued that she had a colorable claim to ownership and should be allowed access during litigation. He actually used the phrase self-help remedy to describe her breaking into my property. Michael thankfully came prepared for war. He presented the original will clearly stating sole ownership. The forensic report proving the text messages were fraudulent security footage of Rebecca obtaining the key through false pretenses, building records showing I was the sole owner on file, police reports from the incident, screenshots of her social media posts, claiming ownership, and affidavits from neighbors about her false representations. The judge, Honorable Margaret Chen, was visibly annoyed by the entire situation. She questioned Rebecca directly about the fraudulent text messages, and Rebecca's response was to cry and claim she remembered them differently and might have been confused by grief. Judge Chen wasn't buying it. She granted our emergency injunction ordering Rebecca to immediately vacate the property, surrender all keys, and cease representing herself as an owner to any third parties. She also scheduled an expedited hearing on our motion to dismiss the lawsuit. Rebecca's courtroom composure cracked. She accused me of stealing her inheritance and dishonoring our grandmother's memory. She actually told the judge that I was being cruel to my only sister and that family should matter more than property. Judge Chen's response was sharp. "Ms. Morrison, family should matter more than property. Perhaps you should have considered that before filing this lawsuit and unlawfully entering your brother's home." The judge gave Rebecca 24 hours to remove her belongings under police supervision. She also granted our request for a restraining order preventing Rebecca from coming within 100 feet of the condo building. The next day's move out was tense. Rebecca arrived with Tyler and 2 friends, all of whom glared at me like I was the villain. She made passive-aggressive comments throughout. "I hope you're happy, James. You got what you wanted. Grandma would be so disappointed in how you've treated me. This condo means more to you than your own sister. I can't believe you called the cops on your own family. She had managed to spread her belongings throughout the entire condo in just 4 days. It took 3 hours to ensure everything was removed. I documented the entire process with video and photos on Michael's advice. Before leaving, she looked me in the eye and said, "You may have won this round, but I know what Grandma wanted. This isn't over." The aftermath has been extensive. I immediately changed all locks and had a security system installed. Building management was mortified by the security breach and has implemented new procedures. They've also banned Rebecca from the property. Michael is pursuing sanctions against Rebecca and her attorney for frivolous litigation. We're seeking reimbursement for all legal fees, the security system, and lock changes. The forensic evidence of fraud has been forwarded to the prosecutor's office for potential criminal charges. The family fallout has been severe. Rebecca has painted herself as the victim to anyone who will listen. Some relatives have bought her story, others see through it, and many just want to stay out of it. Thanksgiving was canceled after it became clear that any family gathering would be a disaster. My Aunt Linda tried to host a modified dinner, but when half the family refused to come if the other half was invited, she gave up. The investigation into Rebecca's finances revealed the depth of her desperation. She owes 3 months of back rent on her office space, has maxed out her credit cards, and borrowed money from multiple family members. Her business has essentially collapsed with only 2 remaining clients. This explains, but doesn't excuse her behavior. Through all of this, I've been seeing a therapist to process the grief not just for Patricia, but for the sister I've lost. Dr. Williams has helped me understand that Rebecca's actions aren't really about the condo. They're about desperation, entitlement, and maybe some deep-seated resentment I never recognized. I've also learned some hard truths about family. Blood doesn't guarantee loyalty or decent behavior. Sometimes protecting yourself means accepting that a relationship is irreparably broken. Some relatives have surprised me with their support. Others have disappointed me with their willingness to enable Rebecca's behavior. My cousin Jennifer, who initially believed Rebecca's lies, reached out last week to apologize. She had asked Rebecca for proof of the text messages and was blocked on all social media in response. That opened her eyes to who was really lying. Patricia's friend Dorothy has been a godsend. She regularly checks in and reminds me that I'm honoring Patricia's actual wishes, not the fantasy Rebecca created. She even testified at the emergency hearing about Patricia's true intentions. As for the lawsuit itself, we have a hearing next month on our motion to dismiss. Michael is confident it will be thrown out, especially given the evidence of fraud. He's less optimistic about recovering legal fees as Rebecca likely has no assets to collect from. I've started the process of renting out the condo, though I now have to disclose the recent legal dispute to potential tenants. The rental income will help offset the mountain of legal bills I've accumulated. My initial plan to use it for financial security has morphed into hoping I break even after this mess. Sarah and I are still together, though this ordeal has tested our relationship. She's been supportive but admitted last week that she never wants to go through something like this again. We're in couples counseling to work through the stress this has caused. The most tragic part is that Patricia's estate, which she carefully planned to provide for both grandchildren, has instead torn us apart. The woman who loved family above all else would be heartbroken to see what's happened. I don't know if Rebecca and I will ever speak again. Part of me mourns the relationship we had. Another part recognizes that someone capable of this level of deception and manipulation isn't someone I want in my life. The sister I thought I knew maybe never really existed. To those asking why I didn't just give her money to make it go away, I considered it. But ultimately this was about more than money. It was about truth, respect for Patricia's wishes, and not rewarding fraudulent behavior. If I had given in, what would have been next? Would she have come after my house, my future inheritance from other relatives? I'm sharing this story as a cautionary tale. Get your own attorney in inheritance disputes, even with family. Document everything obsessively. Don't assume family members will act reasonably when money is involved. Stand firm when you're in the right, even when it's painful. Consider security measures for inherited property immediately. Most importantly, remember that honoring someone's actual wishes is more important than keeping the peace with those who would distort those wishes for personal gain. Patricia deserved better than this outcome. She deserved grandchildren who honored her memory rather than fighting over her assets. I can't control Rebecca's actions, but I can ensure that Patricia's actual wishes are respected, even if it costs me my sister. Thank you to everyone who has followed this story and offered support. Your comments helped me stay strong when family pressure nearly broke me. I hope none of you ever experienced something similar, but if you do, know that you're not alone in dealing with family members who put greed above relationships. This is hopefully my final update. The condo is secure, the lawsuit is likely to be dismissed, and I'm moving forward with my life. It's not the outcome I wanted, but it's the one Rebecca forced through her choices. Rest in peace, Patricia. I'm sorry your legacy became a battleground, but I promise your true wishes will be honored.